What's going on, guys? I hope that you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about Mufasa the Lion King, the brand new Lion King live-action prequel starring Mufasa and Scar, and kind of just going over their origin story, essentially. Kind of like this is a superhero film, but listen, just to give you guys a little bit of background on how I feel about Lion King as a whole, this universe, I guess, that we've established at this point, because I guess we're just going to keep making movies. The original Lion King, the animated film from 1994, 30 years ago, which is pretty crazy. I absolutely love that movie. I think it's one of the best animated films ever. It's one of my favorite animated films ever. I would never deny its legendary run up to this point. Not that it's, over. It's still going. The live-action remake from 5 years ago that remade the actual Lion King story, unlike this one, which was trying to do a new story, I think is one of the most offensive movies ever made. I'm not even joking, and I think it is one of the worst movies that I've ever seen. The lions' faces don't emote, the story changes some things that ruins the original story. Without exaggeration, I literally think it is one of the worst films that I've ever seen. So quite honestly, I didn't really have any expectations going into this film. I wasn't really looking forward to it. But did it flip the switch? Especially because this is an original story. We're trying something new here. We're kind of, again, like I said, going over this origin and to see how Scar and Mufasa kind of started to bash heads, especially if they kind of grew up as brothers. That's what I want to dive into here today. Well, I would love to report the good news that this movie is better than the live-action Lion King remake, but it is still really bad. Like, really, really bad. Before I say a single thing about a pro or a con about this movie, I want to just say one thing. The only reason that this film was made is because the Lion King live-action remake was the highest grossing animated film of all time. It made like $1.6 billion. Inside Out 2 just passed it, so it's held that record for 5 years. So just to go over what the creative process was like for making this film, they were going through their cheap scripts, at Disney. They were like, what idea can we make? You know what? Let's just make a Mufasa live-action remake, right? We'll go over his origin story with Scar or something like that. Yeah, that works. Okay, you know what? We need to call up a director. Who can we get to direct this movie? You know who's hot right now? Christopher Nolan. Let's get Nolan on the line. Nolan, listen, I've got an idea for you, buddy. We're doing this Mufasa live-action remake, and we want you to direct it. Wait, what was that? Oh, you want me to go screw myself? Okay. Alright, I love you. Alright, say it back. Alright, you don't have to, it's fine. Okay. Alright, Nolan's busy. We gotta try to work with someone else, guys. We really gotta try to get someone else. Who isn't busy right now? You know who isn't busy? Barry Jenkins. Barry Jenkins. He just made Moonlight. It won, Best Picture like less than 10 years ago. Let's call him up. Okay. Hey, Barry. Barry, what's going on, man? Hope the family's doing well. Listen, I have this great directing gig for you, okay? Mufasa, live action, remake, origin, honestly, it doesn't even matter. We're gonna give you a ton of money, and we just want to slap your name on this movie, okay? You're not gonna have to do anything, and honestly, even if you do have some creative ideas, we're kind of just gonna disregard them, because here at Disney, we just do whatever we want. We want to put your name on there, you're not gonna have to do anything, and you get a lot of money. Are you down? Yeah, sure, yeah. Alright, no problem, sounds good. Alright guys, we got our director, Barry Jenkins. I swear, that is literally how these Disney creative meetings go, because there's no way they were like, oh my god, I have the greatest idea ever for a prequel. That's what we're gonna make. No, it's all money driven, and yes, all movies are money driven. They all want to make money. But these just feel so cheap and so obviously obnoxious that it's legitimately embarrassing for Disney. But why is this movie bad? Let's get into it, right? Because I can't critique a movie and just say, oh, it's bad, without explaining why, of course. Let me go into my pros, okay? The reason I think this movie actually does improve on the other one, even if it's ever so slightly, is because they actually changed the way that the lions' faces move, which I'm being honest here, I'm not being sarcastic anymore. I thought was a great choice. Within minutes of this movie starting, I was like, oh, whoa, the lions look so much better. They can kind of laugh, their eyes move, they actually have eyebrows. They just have functioning faces that they can portray emotions off of, and that was so refreshing to see, because in the 2019 film, I feel like all they're doing is just reading out lines that have emotion behind them, but their faces are just dull because they're just lions, I guess, and they're trying to be very realistic. But listen, from there, It's cool to see, lions fighting, I guess. There's some action sequences. And from there, I guess it is nice that this is actually an original story. So it's relatively nice to see the origins of Scar and Mufasa, even if I think it's kind of a stupid story, which we'll get into in a minute. But either way, it's not dancing on the corpse of one of my favorite animated films of all time. It's kind of just trying to do its own thing, which I respect. And again, some of the visuals are really nice. Of course, the CGI looks gorgeous. That's definitely another positive. But at the same time, this movie's very style over substance, if there even is really what you could call style. It's more just nice CGI. Let's just dive into the cons here. This film truly has some of the most childish storytelling that I have seen in a long time. And I know what you're immediately going to be thinking. Wait a minute, this is a children's movie. Guys, just because a movie is targeting children doesn't mean that it has to talk to its audience like they are 3-year-olds. I'm not even joking. It feels like every 2 seconds, characters are directly telling you how they feel and what they're gonna do, and it's truly mind-blowing. Some of the choices in this film, the way that certain action sequences, or not action sequences, but just events are linked together, it feels like there's no narrative flow, there's no momentum, we're just going, and if something happens, you kind of just have to believe it and say, okay, I guess that, the villains just randomly appear where the heroes are, and there are just so many sequences that are like that, where again, they're literally treating you like you're 5 years old and they have to hold your hand. Kids movies are so great, and Disney obviously has created some of the greatest kids films ever because of the fact that they try to tell a good story for adults as well. That's why Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up. I mean, I know that those are Pixar, but they're still Disney. Even, I don't know what, Princess and the Frog, Moana, Mulan, this, that. I could go down the whole line, right? There's a reason these films are good, because adults can enjoy them too, and they have really great narrative storytelling and really great emotional depth. In this film, every single time a new character is introduced, which is 3 times maybe, the first thing that you hear them say is 3 sentences basically explaining who they are, where they're from, and what they're looking for, or what they want to do at that current time. It's insanity. It's like the worst exposition dumps that I have ever heard. Again, holding your hand through this entire movie. And speaking of this entire movie, it's honestly just so uninteresting to see where this story goes. The thing is, the basis of this film, again, is the origins of Scar and Mufasa, but it's technically being told by Rafiki to Simba's son. So the way that the movie starts is that we're in a post-Lion King era where Simba has his son, okay? Simba's going somewhere, I think, so Rafiki's kind of babysitting Simba's son, and they're kind of just talking about this story, okay? That's literally it. They're sitting in a cave, and Rafiki is telling Simba's son a story. And to create some comedic elements and to bring back some fan favorite characters, Timon and Pumbaa are also there, sitting there, listening to the story. So we start this story off, and then of course, that's what the film is, so we're seeing these events take place. But after 20 minutes, we go back to the story, and we basically just see, again, Timon and Pumbaa, sitting by the fire, talking with Rafiki. And they have to just throw some gags, and it kills the momentum of the story. Because every 15 minutes, instead of just letting the story play out, we're going back to Rafiki in, the real time, I guess you could say, telling the story. Timon and Pumbaa crack some jokes, then we go back to the story. Then we go back to Rafiki telling the story, that little sequences. It's literally like a Family Guy cutaway back to the real event, or the present, I guess you could say. It's really, really lackluster, it's uncreative, and it ruins the momentum. And you can tell that they literally just wanted to have Timon and Pumbaa every 15 minutes having some gags, even though it sacrifices the momentum of the story. Not that the story's really all this interesting, because the villain in here absolutely sucks. I'm gonna be honest. It's really bad. It's basically just this pack of white lions, and the king of the white lions is the villain. And he is tracking down Scar and Mufasa across miles and miles for kind of no reason. There is a reason, but it's very loose, and honestly, he shouldn't care this much, especially because of events that happen in the film. It doesn't matter. But either way, it's such a pointless film. There is no reason why this movie should exist. It's meaningless. And in case you couldn't guess, spoilers, even though this is not a spoiler, of course, there is a point where Mufasa and Scar start to butt heads. There's a flip that is switched. But the scene where Scar turns bad, I guess you could say, is so abrupt and so out of nowhere that it makes no sense whatsoever. It was not earned at all. It feels so random, and it feels like within a matter of 3 seconds, he's a new character. He's Scar now. His voice even changes. Why did your voice change? Sure, maybe now like you're mad and you have different motivations, but why is your voice changing to the Scar voice that we know? It's so nonsensical. It's laughable. I was almost about to laugh in the theater, seriously. The way that this flip switches to the bad, evil Scar. Insane. Insane. I don't even know how Disney produced this film. This is one of the worst theatrical releases this year so far by a landslide. The way the villain's defeated is also really stupid. And the one thing that really got me that I was thinking about after I watched the movie is that there's really nothing to learn from this film. There's no themes. There's no depth, there's no emotional elements in here that really had me wanting to absolutely cry and have a tear roll down my cheek. There's just nothing here. We're following paper-thin characters throughout this paper-thin story. It's ridiculous. It's funny because I feel like Mufasa gets more depth in the original Lion King, and he dies like a third into the movie. So we have an entire movie with Mufasa here, and his only real depth is that he's cool and that he's strong and that he's kind of smart. That's about it. Please don't waste your hard-earned money on this film. What's my final rating going to be for Mufasa the Lion King? A movie that does improve on the worst movie of all time practically to me, but really isn't that great. I am going to settle with a 2-star for this. This movie has some moments where, yeah, it's cool to see lions fighting, like I said. It looks pretty visually pleasing. And again, it's an original story, so at least you don't really know where it goes, even though we all know Scar turns bad. But there's nothing there for you. It's paper thin, it's boring, it's pointless. At the end of the day, you're going to walk out and forget this movie even existed. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.